It's ready! SpaceX's Starship Flight 5 hardware is ready. So when's that next launch? Booster 14 back at the launch site, will we see more slaps? The first next-gen Starship is almost done, what's it missing? SpaceX Raptor 3 static fired, how is this even real? Starliner is still stuck at the ISS and now we know why. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. Flight 5 is close, in fact according to SpaceX they are ready for Flight 5. Wait, what? They are ready? Great! Then why don't they launch? Excellent question, I just love making videos for people that ask these kinds of questions, thank you for tuning in. Unfortunately, what's slowing SpaceX down now isn't building the world's largest and most advanced rocket, it's paperwork. The FAA, which governs all air and space operations, ensures public safety during rocket launches. And since Flight 5 will have maneuvers that were never even considered until just a few years ago, the FAA wants to ensure there is no danger to the public. Musk even stated that we are 3 weeks out, but this is only his best estimate. It can always change. But it does give us a rough outline of SpaceX's Starship plans. Flight hardware for Flight 5 is ready. License is estimated to come in roughly 3 weeks from now. Well done. In the meantime, SpaceX can also use this short break to keep testing hardware around one of those new seemingly crazy maneuvers. One of these maneuvers is the booster catch, which involves catching the gigantic first stage Starship booster on a gigantic pair of metal arms. No kidding. This helps reduce the booster's weight and turnaround time by eliminating the landing legs and allowing the booster to be placed right back on the launch pad after its return from space. That's genius! And as crazy as this seems, SpaceX's engineers are hard at work making sure this maneuver goes from unbelievable render to crazy reality. You'd be surprised how often I am confronted with comments stating that all this is impossible. How about we wait and see? Wouldn't it be fantastic if it did work? That's why we saw SpaceX once again roll the punching bag Booster 14.1 back to the launch pad for catch testing. No clue what that's about? Keep watching. On the night of the 6th, this test tank designed to verify the catch process was rolled from the rocket garden down Highway 4 to the launch site. It was then lifted and placed onto the launch mount for round 2 of testing. More slaps, hopefully, but what's that all about? Back in late June, we saw SpaceX performing all sorts of tests on this poor punching bag, including slap tests where the test tank was, well, slapped by the gigantic metal chopstick arms of the launch tower, and catch rail tests where the rails were pressed against the catch pins. After these tests, workers were seen working on many of the shock absorbers on the landing rails, so it makes sense that SpaceX would want to test these upgrades before a flight. This has never been done before. They need to see if it actually works. That's a common thing in Starship development and the main reason why all this seems so strange compared to other rocket developments. Much of it is just new to the industry. All this testing could also help show the FAA that SpaceX knows what they are doing and could help speed up the needed approvals, but we will have to wait and see. We haven't seen any tests just yet, but we expect that any day now and we will let you know the moment it happens. Until then, Booster 14.1 isn't the only thing that's undergoing testing. If we move over to Massey's now, we can see its newest returning resident, Ship 30. But before I tell you about that, we have looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. And while you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter. Why? Because you'll gain access to a massive amount of extra content. With it, you get access to daily new Starbase photo galleries, including all those we've posted so far. Satellite, aerial and ground photos, more than 400 posts in the past 2 years alone, with up to 7 picture galleries per week, insights, chats with me, you name it. And no matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access, no tiers, you decide what it's worth to you, you rock. Now, if you remember earlier, I mentioned SpaceX's post on X stating that Ship 30 for Flight 5 was ready. So there was another successful static fire this time, right? Right? On the 7th, we watched as SpaceX once again filled Ship 30 with its cryogenic propellants. This is shown by the frost line forming on the outside of the ship, which is caused by the extremely cold propellants freezing the water in the air, forming a layer of ice on the outside. Then, after the ship finished fueling, we watched it perform a spin prime. Yep, not a static fire. A spin prime is when the cryogenic propellants are run through all the engine's components just like they would before ignition. The only thing missing is the spark to light it. It's kind of like a static fire but without the fire part. These are typically the tests performed right before a static fire. So now for some sparks. On the night of the 8th, just a day after the spin prime, Ship 30 rolled back to the production yard? Wait, what? So did they already find a problem or something? Well, it's unlikely, given that SpaceX's post about the hardware being ready came after the spin prime, meaning they likely knew if it was ready or not. This means that the spin prime we just witnessed will be Ship 30's last engine test before Flight 5. But why is that? After all, Ship 30 already needed 2 engine swaps due to problems found during static fires, so why skip this one? The reason may be something as simple as speed. With Flight 5 right around the corner, the sooner Ship 30 is ready, the better. Even if all that's left is regulatory approval, having all the hardware ready could likely speed up that approval, putting some pressure on the FAA. It's also possible that SpaceX just doesn't need it, and other tests would have already shown any flaws. We have even seen something similar in the past with Ship 28, where one of its engines was swapped without static fire, and that was the first ship to reach orbital velocity, so it seems to have worked. Skipping the full static fire can come with some risks, but SpaceX appears confident enough to give the go after the prime test. What do you think? Was this to save time, or maybe there was just some internal miscommunication and we will see yet another engine swap and static fire? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. After a short stay at Megabay 2, Ship 30 was lifted off the crab static fire stand and rolled to the rocket garden, likely for final checks and storage before Flight 5. Ship 30 is now back at the build site, allowing us to stop for a moment and take a good look at its new heat shield. Ship 30's heat shield was entirely torn off and replaced following what SpaceX learned during Flight 4's re-entry. This new heat shield is double the strength of the old one and has a backup ablative layer beneath. But that's not all. It's clear that SpaceX has vastly improved both its heat shield production and installation process. Don't see it? The differences are clear when comparing Ship 30's new heat shield to the old design, which is still present on its newer sibling Ship 32. The first thing that pops out is the consistency. Ship 32's tiles are all over the place, with each tile appearing to have a different shade. In contrast, Ship 30's heat shield is much more even, with differences only in application method, particularly near complicated spots like weld seams and sensor tiles. Some of this could be due to SpaceX engineers changing the manufacturing process on the fly, as SpaceX is known to do with other components such as engines. The other possibility is that it is just due to an inconsistent manufacturing method. SpaceX has extensive experience manufacturing ablative heat shields, but mass producing a massive reusable one will require some learning in the beginning. Either way, it is clear that Ship 30's tiles are much more uniform. Speaking of this new heat shield, Ship 30 may have been the first to be equipped with it, but it won't be the last. So let's take a look at Ship 31 over in the high bay. Just a few days ago, SpaceX workers began removing Ship 31's tiles, and we can already see tons of tiles removed. Okay, maybe not tons, seeing as these tiles are actually very light, but there is still lots of work. This is particularly true near the aft sections, where teams have already removed a large chunk of tiles near the aft flaps. It appears workers have also been focusing on tiles that were over a weld line. Tiles here are typically applied using glue instead of pins, so it would make sense for workers to do these sections separately. It even looks like SpaceX is only removing tiles that were glued on to start and leaving the pinned tiles for later. With Ship 31's work going well, let's take a look at the other ship at the production yard, the first of the updated Block 2 design Ship 33. But first, I have a question. Did you ever encounter a smell that brought back a positive memory? You know, scents can affect how we feel. They can remind us of old memories, help us relax, or give us energy for the day. From the relaxing smell of lavender to the fresh scent of citrus, different smells can make us feel a lot of different emotions. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that draws flavor to your mouth, not to your lungs. You got one of those oral fixations? Fume is filling the void in a natural, guilt-free way. Fume uses plans and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. Plus, it has adjustable airflow and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting. Yeah, so this is fun. And it's going to annoy the heck out of your neighbors. My favorite flavor is spearmint. Whew, it actually smells really pleasing. It's like I was surprised with this thing, and it really smells incredible. And you don't even have to suck on it. It's just, it smells, and it's really good. I like it. It brings back fond memories of spending time at my grandparents' house. They loved mint, and this flavor really takes me back to those wonderful times. With over 300,000 happy customers, you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code WHATABOUTIT or scan the QR code on screen to get your free Fume base when ordering the Journey Pack. Fume, a better way to breathe flavor. Now, let's talk about next-gen starships. Once again, yet another piece of Ship 33 was rolled over to Mega Bay 2 before being attached to the prototype and lifted onto the weld stand. I just love how we can all witness the creation of the next generation of starships piece by piece. Thanks for doing this with me. With this 3-ring segment now a part of Ship 33, we should only be missing 2 segments after this. At the pace SpaceX is going, you can expect to see those any day now. Despite this being a nearly completely redesigned ship, it has flown up, with the first segment appearing on July 14th. Considering all the changes made between Blocks 1 and 2 and the use of new equipment such as the new welding stand in Mega Bay 2, the rate at which this ship was built is astonishing, even by SpaceX's standards. Future starships are going to need incredible engines, strong, reliable, and most difficult to achieve by far, mass-producible ones. After last week's big Raptor 3 episode, which you should definitely watch, we have even more updates on the future of SpaceX's rocket engines. Check this out. It works! Yep, they already static fired their brand new Raptor 3 engine. Musk decided to post some images of Raptor 3's first static fire on X, showing that this is, in fact, what the final product looks like. Epic to see these frozen parts right next to extremely hot ones. This shows you how much thermal stress such an engine has to cope with. It's such a drastic change, it's hard to believe even for fellow space community experts, and it's easy to see why it looks unfinished. The improvements are clear compared with early Raptor engines and basically any other engine actively flown in the industry. Even BE-4, Blue Origin's answer to a reusable rocket engine, looks normal. A flying spaghetti monster. That's just what a rocket engine looks like, or is it? Raptor 3 has much fewer parts visible, and now we can see what it looks like while fully operational. Despite some well-meaning skepticism from critics, what SpaceX showed off before really is what the engine looks like fully built. We discussed how SpaceX achieved this in last week's Raptor 3 episode. Essentially, they were able to integrate many of the smaller pipes and components into other structures or eliminate them altogether. In fact, in this picture you can see just how many lines go into just one of the engine ports. That is a lot of connections. The engineers and workers at SpaceX are looking ahead into the future. With Raptor 3 they revolutionized rocket engine design. This might very well be the new industry benchmark. They can be proud of their accomplishments. Excellent job, SpaceX, you rock. SpaceX is also a huge fan of upgrading the work environment. Let's take a look. There's been a ton of construction at the office building. Check this out. Yep, they are finally starting to build the connection between the office and the build site. But that's not all. In addition to beginning the last step needed for the Star Factory, SpaceX has also begun the construction of these piles. These are here to support the weight of some sort of structure. This could be for yet another connection, or maybe they will use them to support the weight of some displaced starships from the rocket garden. We can hope. The main structure hasn't been left out of this new wave of construction either. Workers have finally begun finishing the exterior with glass. So, with all the recent work going on at and around the office, a question may come to mind. Why now? It seems SpaceX has been taking its time with this area over the past few months, with only seemingly minor work being completed. So, what changed? Well, it likely has something to do with this. But what is this? This is a dismissal with prejudice order, which means that a case is permanently dismissed and can't be brought back to that court. In other words, a case has been resolved, but what case? Remember this trolling attempt? Since SpaceX began building Starbase, they have been trying to buy up every piece of land in the area so they can build the world's most advanced rocket factory. Seems easy. This included the small village of Boca Chica, Texas, but one spot of land in particular has caused SpaceX a huge headache. This piece of land was bought back in 2020, shortly after SpaceX began operations. But why? The land has since been untouched, and the owners have refused to sell to SpaceX for any of their offers despite being well above market value. Oh. Due to this, SpaceX filed a lawsuit over breach of contract. We aren't exactly sure of the nature of the contract, but after multiple years, the case has finally been resolved. We aren't quite sure how it was resolved, through a deal or through a massive payment, but we do know that the end result is the same either way. It appears SpaceX may have finally acquired the last missing piece of land to finish its gigantic star factory. The small dividing fence that had been put up around the property has already been removed. Starbase is free. Expect workers to quickly begin transforming this unused patch of land into the last missing piece of the rocket factory of the future. That's about damn time. Moving on from Starbase, our next crazy story unfolds a few hundred kilometers overhead on the International Space Station, or ISS. We finally have an update on Boeing's Starliner. In an hour-and-a-half press conference by NASA, we finally got a glimpse into what is going on behind the scenes with Starliner. It has now spent 2 months on board the space station out of its original planned 8-day stay. So what's the problem then? Why can't they come back? Well, it has everything to do with safety. NASA has safety as a very high priority, especially on these test flights where there are still many unknowns. So even if there is a 99% chance that Starliner will make it back safely, that 1% may be too much for NASA, and given all the unknowns, NASA may not even know the chances. On top, confidence goes down with every problem that happens, and Starliner has a pretty impressive list to show at this point. One of the main issues they are having on the ground is disagreement. Firstly, it appears that all but one of the thrusters are now back to nominal. Thank you, John Innsbrucker. Much appreciated. To nominal thrust. Yay! This is a good sign, as 5 thrusters went out during docking. 4 were brought back online, and the 5th was permanently turned off and is still off. There is, however, one problem with this good news. I kid you not, they aren't quite sure why they are working properly again and why they weren't working in the first place. See the problem? In engineering land, if you can't find the cause of a problem, then finding a solution is basically impossible. It's like blind darts. They do at least have some theories though. The main of which is temperature problems with a small Teflon seal around a valve. This seal is not too different from one you may have used when working with any sort of water pipe, such as when replacing a shower head. Not that it has shower heads. Only these are aerospace grade, or at least they are supposed to be. During on-ground testing, it was found that these seals can expand or contract in a way that disrupts the flow of propellant when at extreme temperatures. Last I checked, space had some pretty extreme temperatures, like let's say from roasting hot to almost absolute zero. But these are only theories, and engineers have still not fully been able to replicate what's being seen in orbit. With all this uncertainty, NASA may determine that Starliner isn't worth the risk. But then what will they do? They currently have 2 contingency plans if Starliner is determined too dangerous, and both involve using SpaceX's Dragon capsule. Haha! The first and most likely plan would have the two Starliner astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams fly back on the Crew 9 Dragon capsule, which is set to launch in late September. In this scenario, Crew 9 would only launch with 2 crew members and return with 4. This also means that Butch and Sonny wouldn't return until March or April of next year, turning their 8-day stay into an over 8-month stay. Talk about a layover. The funny part is that they likely won't complain. In this scenario, due to some delays caused by Starliner, Crew 9 would launch from the newly built crew tower at SpaceX's second launch pad at Cape Canaveral, Slick 40. That would be the first crew launch from that pad. However, in the event that something happens and the crew needs to leave immediately and cannot use Starliner, NASA also has a contingency plan to return them in the Crew 8 capsule. Although that would mean Crew 8 would be returning with 6 people but only 4 seats, so Butch and Sonny would need to lay on the cargo pallet. Wait, what? Hold your horses. This seems more dangerous, but other than a slightly bumpy ride for them, there would be no problems, as the Crew Dragon was originally designed to carry a max of 7 people, even without seats. I'm sorry, I gotta say it, this would be so epic. Even with all this talk of contingency plans and uncertainty, it is important to remember that this is all only a safety precaution. Even if it doesn't look like it now, Starliner is likely safe to return astronauts. It's not a death trap as some more extreme channels and news outlets are saying. It's just not as reliable as needed. Boeing just didn't do a particularly good job. Given that lives are counting on everything working perfectly, the unknowns and an abundance of caution have led to the current situation. All we can hope is that whatever decision is made ensures the safe return of Butch and Sonny. Above all, that is what matters most. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and it helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. As the Crew Dragon was originally without the fur part. No, what? Yeah, furry starships, that's a thing now.